I just know that I've got a few more people that I know will be on here, so, but I can go ahead and start. It is 6 o'clock, 6:01. So first of all, thank you, Mary, for coming. I've had the pleasure of knowing Mary for quite some time. She has even came out to our area and presented to our Prevention Advisory Coalition. So I'm happy to introduce Mary. So Mary Johnston serves as the Director of Survey Services for Bach Harrison and has worked as a data collection project manager for 20 years. While at Bach Harrison, she has coordinated the Utah Student Health and Risk Prevention Survey since its inception in 2003, and has also managed state and community level survey projects in Arizona, Arkansas, Idaho, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Montana, New York, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, and Nebraska. Mary received her master's degree from Kansas State University in 2002 and is also PMP certified. So again, thank you, Mary, for giving us your time and helping us explain what the SHARP survey is tonight.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you all for having me at your community meeting. I'm happy to be here and talking about the SHARP survey, which is coming up pretty soon in the community. So this is great timing, and hopefully, like Robin said, I was there in the area a while back when we were talking about 2019 SHARP data. So hopefully by the time we have 2021 data, which should be this fall, they will let us meet again, and I can come back and hopefully we'll see some of you guys at that meeting. So I'm here to talk about SHARP. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat and see if you guys have any questions. So go ahead and put them in the chat, or there will be time for questions afterwards, or honestly, just unmute yourself and just speak up. So I'm going to treat this as if most of the people here are SHARP newbies. So if some of this is repeat, please excuse me, but I'm just going to go ahead and treat this as if you guys are a blank slate in terms of what you know about the SHARP survey. So SHARP stands for Student Health and Risk Prevention. It is actually a umbrella project that includes a couple of different surveys. The main survey is the Prevention Needs Assessment Survey, which is the survey that all of our 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th graders take. And then the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which I believe in Duchesne, only one school has been randomly selected to take part of that, and the sample is very small. The Youth Risk Behavior Survey is a 9th through 12th grade survey that's given to only about 1,000 students across the state. So it's a very, very small sample. The survey has also over time kind of evolved to include additional school district and school extra questions as they are needed. I don't believe any district in the Northeast region has taken advantage of that. And the SHARP survey is sponsored by 3 funding agencies: the State Board of Education, the Department of Health, and the Department of Human Services Division of Substance Abuse and Mental Health. There are a lot of really good purposes and benefits for SHARP. So SHARP started in 2003. Prior to that, there was no real way to gather, or there was no real effort in the state of Utah to gather local level data, let alone region level data or even state level data that would allow us to make data-driven decisions. So if you can imagine at that time, a lot of what we were trying to do to help kids was really just kind of guessing or taking a shot in the dark. Sometimes it was making assumptions, and we all know that making assumptions is not really the best way to spend money or to guide good choices or to evaluate whether what we're doing is working or not. So SHARP was founded and allows many agencies to gather prevention and health data without surveying students every year. Without having students take more than one survey. It provides data at the school district level, school level, region, state. We can run data at the community level and at the county level. It provides data that are used to target and then evaluate prevention services and health services. A lot of the data are used to maintain and receive funding, not only at the state level, but at a local level. School districts have used SHARP to apply for multi-million-dollar grants across the state of Utah. The data provide or help us to demonstrate that we're using funds effectively and wisely, and we're not just wasting our money. And then the data are reported, which allows everybody the chance to kind of dive into their data and understand what the needs of kids are, and then how we can address them. And the data are just very helpful in terms of applying for funding and getting funding. The main form I'm going to talk about today is the Prevention Needs Assessment Survey. And again, this is the main survey that students take in grades 6, 8, 10, and 12. This form was developed by the Social Development Research Group at the University of Washington. I would say it's probably like 3 decades ago. So this slide needs to be updated. As an interesting side note, I actually grew up in the state of Kansas, and Kansas has been doing this survey for many years, close to that 30 years. They were one of the first states that started using this. I actually recall taking this survey when I was in high school, a version of it, which they call it the Communities That Care survey in Utah. The survey was first created through funding by CSAP. This is an instrument that is used country and worldwide. So over half of the United States are using, or half of our states are using some version of this risk and protective factor survey. The participation in the survey is 100% confidential and anonymous. Whether students take it in paper pencil format or online, there is absolutely positively no way to trace the survey back to a student. And we'll go into that more in some of these upcoming slides. This is an evolving survey. So you might have heard me reference other states do surveys that are similar to this. And what I mean by that is there are core questions in a survey having to do with risk and protective factors on the community, family, peer, individual, and school domains that are commonalities. They're common across all of these forms. Likewise, the way that we ask about substance use, that is pretty standard as well across all forms, and that allows us to compare to national data. But there are a good number of questions on the Utah survey that are unique to Utah in terms of the survey is an evolving survey. Every 2 years, we take a look at the survey content and we say, okay, what are the needs? What do we need to understand right now? What do we understand our problems? And likewise, what questions have we asked in the past that we now know are not problems, and we can quit asking kids about them? A good example of kind of this evolution, let's see. A good example, like I would say maybe 8 or 10 years ago, the state of Utah had a big gambling grant, and we asked gambling questions on the survey. That grant expired, and honestly, I think through asking questions, we realized that the kids in the state of Utah are not gamblers, and those questions went away. Likewise, when we started doing the survey in 2003, e-cigarettes did not even exist. Kids, the abuse of prescription narcotics was not really a thing. And we weren't, sort of the dialogue about teenage suicide was also not a really big part of sort of the prevention sphere. So we weren't asking questions like that back then. And those are really great examples of data that I can't imagine living without right now. This survey is not just a substance use survey. When we started doing SHARP, it really was just a substance use survey that also focused on risk and protective factors and allowed us to not only see what substances kids were using, but use the risk and protective factor model as kind of a predictive model to see maybe the factors that were placing kids at risk for engaging in problem behavior, and then also the factors that were providing them with protection against doing that. Utah has really taken the SHARP survey and turned it, really embraced the mission of the project, which was to make sure that we're only surveying kids once every 2 years, And then that survey gathers all the data that every agency and school district needs to help kids lead healthy, happy, and substance-free lives. So the Utah PNA survey is not just a substance use survey. These are just some of the topics that are covered on the survey. Anything from underage drinking, which feeds the Parents Empowered campaign, to highway safety questions, health and behavior questions, career and college readiness questions, suicide ideation and suicide planning. And we do this through just really efficient use of the space that we have and the time that we have. And then also some interleaving of forms, which allows us to gather data for a large number of questions without students taking every single question. A big part of what the survey does, and this is definitely Robin's domain in terms of how she uses the data for her wonderful prevention work, is to the risk and protective factor model. And if you worked with Robin, this chart probably looks familiar, but each of these check marks demonstrates where at least 2 published journal articles have shown a link between the problem behavior on the left and then these risk factors here up above. And the risk and protective factor model looks at risk factors, looks at the whole child. So we look at the influences of a child's community, their family, their school, and then their peer individual domains. So for example, let's see, transitions and mobility has been showed through research to be linked or predictive of substance use, delinquency, school dropout, and depression and anxiety. Likewise, lack of commitment to school has been shown to predict all of these things, except for depression and anxiety. And so we use this model not only so that we can look at a community level and see what factors are high for our kids, and therefore if we would address them, we would hopefully see as a result a decrease in these problem behaviors. But then likewise, if we see a spike in certain problem behaviors, if we want to target that through solid prevention, we would target the risk of protective factor that shows a correlation with that problem behavior. So what goes into a SHARP administration? I want to just take this time to just really quickly talk about what we're asking your schools and your districts to do. I think a lot of times when we think about a survey or a research study, we think about just something that's very complex and difficult and challenging for our kids. But ultimately, over the last 2 decades, nearly, we have really simplified the process. And our goal at Bach Harrison is to do the survey in a way that might be a little bit hectic and stressful. Right now, it is a little stressful on our part, but that is ultimately fairly straightforward and easy for schools and districts. Jane has been doing, and all of the districts in your area have been doing the survey since 2003, and really they have it down. They make it look really easy. So ultimately, when a superintendent signs on, they name a survey coordinator who we work with. We work with that individual to set survey dates or survey windows. So for example, Duchesne has chosen to start their survey in mid-April. We ask, they work with schools to decide if they want to do the survey online or in paper. We work on gathering active parent permission. We have forms that are already printed that go out. Kids take them home and they have their parents sign them and they bring them back. Only children or only students who have an active parent permission form that is signed and signed yes will receive a copy of the survey. So we work on distributing survey materials to teachers, whether those be paper surveys or survey web links. We also give them a script that they read aloud, which kind of informs students of their rights as participants, and it lets them know all the different ways the survey is confidential and anonymous. And we use our administration protocol is IRB approved, which means it goes through what we call a human subjects review board. And their one focus for the human subjects review board is to make sure that the rights of students as participants are protected, that they know what the study purpose is, that they know what their rights are, that they know that they do not have to participate, that they can skip any question they want to, or they can opt out entirely. It lets them know also that the survey is anonymous and confidential, which we'll talk about in a bit. I wanted to just really quickly, so we ask teachers to administer the survey, and then we ask them when they're done to just let us know when we can close the links and get their materials. I wanted to just show you really quickly just what the survey looks like. So the survey functions just like a website or a web link. So for example, this is a link that we have established for Bonneville Elementary in Ogden School District. And you can see that the first question is where are kids learning today? This is due to COVID. Mostly kids are taking the survey in their school buildings. We do have a couple of schools in urban areas that are administering this through remote education. So
Mary, we're not seeing the survey.
Oh, you aren't? Oh, hold on a second. Let me do a new share. Oh, here we go. Okay, can you see it now? Yes, okay. So okay, let me go back. So it starts with where are you learning? And then students just click through. So you can see that there is nowhere for students to put their name. There's nowhere to put any sort of identifier ID. This is the link that every single student within this school would take. So nobody's taking any certain form that would link back to them specifically. And there are no spaces in which they could even type their name. So for example, if I tried to type my name here, it wouldn't let me go forward. So there's no way to do this. On our paper survey, we explicitly tell students, don't put your name anywhere on it. And so the survey is very anonymous and confidential. Let's see. A lot of what we do in terms of the survey protocol is really just designing a valid survey that stresses confidentiality through the administration. So we stress this through instructions, through our administration procedures, stressing to students that the survey is voluntary, anonymous, and confidential is super important. Letting them know that there's no way to trace back their responses back to us is also really important. And we do a lot of things like testing the questionnaire, using a really good protocol, reading the same instructions to students in the same manner so that everybody takes the survey in the same way. And a lot of what we're doing actually through all of this is not only to protect students' rights as participants, but also to establish an environment in which they feel like they can answer the survey anonymously, honestly, and without stress or anxiety. Interestingly enough, we actually just got a call a couple of days ago from a school district, which I will not name, who said that there was a parent who they had signed the consent form, yes, and their child had taken the survey. And this parent had actually called the school district after the fact and said, I would like to see my child's results. I would like to see their survey. And my response was, well, first of all, I can't, there is absolutely no way for me to find it. Like once it's done, it is lost. But then also, no, I can't do that because that would invalidate your child's response and also invalidate this confidentiality and anonymity agreement that we have with them as a participant. So a lot of work just goes into making sure that we set up a survey that's valid. But then also we know that there are going to be some kids that are dishonest or who don't take it seriously. And so we have a lot of checks that are built into our system at Black Harrison to clean the data before it's reported so that the data that we report to you and to your school districts and your schools is as accurate as possible. So for example, in the 2019 survey, we surveyed nearly over 92,000 students across the state. Of these, about 2% were, or 1.6% were kicked out due to meeting one of our 5 validity checks. So we asked kids at the end of the survey, how honest were you in participating in the survey? If they indicate that they were not honest at all, then those are removed. But chances are if a kid was being dishonest, they could have lied to that question too, right? So we also asked kids if they use a drug called phenoxidine, POX, PX for use. This is a fictitious drug. So if they indicate any use of that, those would be kicked out. If they indicate, for example, they've used alcohol 10 times in the past 30 days, but only 1 time in their lifetime, this doesn't line up. So those would be removed. If they indicate an impossibly high level of drug use, in which I think it's like over 100 uses of any combination of substances in the past month, we would assume those kids would not be at school, let alone taking a survey. And if they indicate, for example, they're an 18-year-old 6th grader, those would be eliminated as well. So after these dishonest students are removed, just 1.6% across the state, we're left with some really quality data. I want to just really briefly go and show you some of the data that we have been able to gather. And these are state level data that really show some powerful stuff. So these are data all the way from 2003 when we started doing Utah Sharp survey. This top one is alcohol use. And you can see in 2003, for all grades combined, so grades 6, 8, 10, and 12, so this is like a middle school, high school average. In the past 30 days in 2003, about 12% of our middle school and high school students had used alcohol in the past 30 days. From our perspective at Black Harrison, this is already pretty low, especially in comparison to national trends, which actually right now in 2019 are still higher than this where we started in 2003. The fact that Utah has been able to drive their substance use down so that in 2019, only 5.5% of middle school and high school students had used in the past 30 days is really tremendous. This survey has also allowed us to see the incredible rise of e-cigarettes from 2011 to 2019. Utah is a great example of a state that had the foresight to say, okay, there are these new devices that are coming on the market. Maybe we should include a question about these in the survey. And Utah was able to kind of witness this dramatic rise in e-cigarette use. And also this, in the past couple of years, we've seen this flip-flop where now in 2019, or at least in 2019, marijuana was actually the second highest used substance, second to e-cigarettes, and third with alcohol. And it's not necessarily because alcohol or marijuana use has been increasing really dramatically. It's actually stayed pretty darn stable. It's the alcohol use has decreased so dramatically. This is an example of how we can look at the data by grade in terms of looking at it at the grade level and studying it at that level. This is for e-cigarettes. This is our suicide ideation and attempt data. This is definitely a topic that has really just gripped the attention of all of Utah's communities in terms of really trying to figure out how we can help students when it comes to mental health and how we can get them to reach out for help when they need it. We've been gathering suicide and mental health data since 2000, or suicide data since 2011, and mental health and depression data far before that. 2019 was the first year where we started to see things either level off or start to decrease for our high school students, which is really amazing. I am interested to see how the data show in 2021. I did read a study the other day that things were going better than anticipated due to the pandemic than we thought, but it will be really interesting to see the data this year. Also in 2019, this is the first year where we started asking questions on social isolation. This is our social isolation scale. So we asked students in the past week, how often have you felt left out, felt that people barely know me, felt isolated from others, and felt that people were around me but not with me. And this is the percent of students who said often or always to these items in the past week. I know we are including these questions on the 2021 survey, and this is another instance in which it will be very interesting to see how the data change from 2019 to 2021, kind of given that the pandemic was right in the middle of those two. Other instances, we are including in this year's survey a couple of questions that will help us to better understand the impact of the pandemic on kids. We have a COVID-19 impacts question in terms of due to the pandemic, did you have a parent who lost a job? Is your family, are there more arguments in your family? Have you had to skip meals because you haven't had enough food at home? Have you gotten sick or somebody in your family's gotten sick? Questions like that will allow us to, for the kids that mark those items, be able to look and see in what ways they may have been struggling so that we can better help and serve them. We are also including an item about distance learning to better understand just kind of how kids did when they were in that type of circumstance. And that is all that I have. I'm going to hand it over to Robin in just a second. This is my contact information. If you have any questions about SHARP, please feel free to reach out. If you are a parent who would like to talk about the survey for your kid, definitely reach out. I do not think that consent forms have gone out yet, but we are always looking for people who are curious and then also people who are advocates. Anytime that we can advocate for how important the data are in a community, we are very appreciative of that. But feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I'm going to hand over the rest of a couple of minutes to Robin to go through her slides, and then I will take any questions that you would have. Robin, take it away.
Well, thank you, Mary. So Mary just went over and she was able to show some data at the state level. In the chat box, I have put the link that you can look in and view the data that is our local data. We are the Northeastern District, and this data that's gathered is available for everyone to look at our district level. And our district would include Uinta, Daggett, and Duchesne counties. Now, our schools have given me special permission to view this at not only the district level, but at each schools. So, and the reason why that's really important is that our prevention staff is pretty minimal. And I say that, and we've just doubled our size. And now we have a total of 4 people to cover 3 entire counties. And funding for 2 of those positions is only a temporary funding. So it's really important that we know what we're going into in every community that we go. So I'd just like to take a little bit of time to just state how important this data is for us. And especially lately, we've been able to come up with a little bit more funding opportunities that we've been able to secure for our area and for prevention services, just because we have this data so readily available to us. So one of the things that I'd really like to push out is on that mental health data that Mary showed us towards the end. Because of the numbers and because of the data and the things that were going on in our community, that data helped us secure a full-time suicide prevention specialist for our area. And her grant covers between the ages of 6 and 24. And it's just because of some of these like the depression rates, the suicidal ideation rates that were in our area. So we're working really closely with the schools and with the Hope Squads to see if we can make those supports in our area a lot more, or a lot stronger, to give the kids the best prevention services that we can. So some of the things that I'd just like you to know, with COVID, we had to change some of the ways we did prevention. For a while there, we weren't ready to get out. So if you notice some of these food type stuffs, up there in the corner with PD actually distributed some prevention information out with some of the drive-through lunch programs that our schools were offering this summer, making sure that we had the contact, making sure that we were still there. We've also did the food drive over in Vernal with the orange sacks. They had farmers feeding families, and we were able to jump in. They let us jump in and give out prevention messaging when we were doing the foods and promoting the bonding. Also, the food pantries down in the corners where we were able to take some of our funding. We purchased actual food for the food pantries with the prevention messaging on it. Now, so one of the reasons that we were able to do this is because a lot of our prevention, and with the data we were shown, is that we can show that family bonding and eating dinners with your families actually can reduce underage drinking in our youth. With this data, I started in on 2007. Our area had the highest underage drinking rates in the state. And because of what the data was showing and the bonding within the families, as one of the risk factors that needed to be strengthened, we actually spent a lot of our resources and our time and financial resources helping push the Parents Empowered campaign. That campaign is evidence-based and it's been shown to make a difference. In 12 years, we've been tracking this. We've inched our way down, and in 2019, our area had, not only had we made a 67% reduction, and you've seen that all of those numbers were going down for the state, but for the first time in 12 years, we were actually lower than the state average, which is absolutely amazing. So not only do we help it guide our efforts, we're able to use this data to make sure that these efforts are working. The middle picture on the top on this, if you remember that risk and protective slide that Mary showed, the school academic failure in elementary and the commitment to schools. If you remembered those checks, it affected all of those all of those outcomes that we wanted to improve in our area. So with our resource gathering and tracking the resources that we had in our area, we found out that we had about 40 to 50 senior citizens that were going into our schools and helping out the students that were struggling, whether it be academically, or maybe they're just not doing well, their family's going through a divorce and the kids just struggling to just even be in class. But these seniors are paired up through the schools with kids that have a need. And we're thinking, you know what, this is great. We've got 50 volunteers that could be prevention workers. So we were actually able to bring a training into these seniors and teach them what we call the social development strategy that simply has been shown to improve mental health with our kids. It's been shown to reduce substance use with our kids. And so we brought this training down, and the trainer that was brought down here said that this was probably the most energetic group of people she's ever trained in this social development strategy. And we just hit a gold mine. I mean, we've got all these wonderful seniors going into our school. Thought we had it made, and all of a sudden COVID hits. And these seniors are no longer able to go into our schools. And at that point, we knew we had just lost 50 volunteers in our school system. Not only was this going to put an extra strain on the kids not having these supports, the support's not there for the teachers either. And the teachers are now having to do virtual stuff with students of all different abilities with no help and not even be able to see the signs and the body language of these kids. So at that point, because we have this data, I was able to issue or just like apply for some additional funding from the state. And we got this funding to purchase 40 iPads for these seniors so that they could still interact with these students in the school system. We got these iPads ordered and, you know, on their way, and we realized, some of these seniors may not even know how to turn these things on. And at that point, I just want to put a shout out to UB Tech, jumped right in and had some of their instructors partner with these foster grandparents, and a few of them at a time actually sat down and taught these seniors how to use these iPads. So COVID or no COVID, rules where they have to social distance, whatever it is, we have got this wonderful resource ready to push out into our community, helping our kids throughout our entire Tri-County area. So Mary, can you advance? Okay, so here's just some other stuff that we're doing. We do go into the schools. We hit the items that we need to hit on underage drinking, letting the kids know that even a charge of underage drinking could limit some of their future possibilities. And so in that booth on the bottom middle, we have the suicide prevention for the Hope Week. And then I went in just with a little bit of reminders on making sure that they stay alcohol free, and that if they want to fit in, according to our SHARP survey, most kids don't use. So we're also able to, on the left side, we've got some of these annual sledding events. This is something that was recently done. And we were able to do this over in Vernal and in Roosevelt side. But we actually just showed up at these sledding events with hot cocoa and just reminding the parents that not to stop interacting with the kids. One of the things that we know is that the older your kids get, the less likely you are to do family things with them. The kids probably have their own things going on, their own friends, they want to do their own thing. But we just remind parents that it's really important that the kids, once they hit into their teen years, this is probably when they need you the most to back up what they need. They're going to get hit with the peer pressure and different choices. So, and then on the bottom one with this is our new suicide prevention specialist down here. We're able to go through with the seniors. One of the things is prevention, even though the SHARP survey does the kids, we know that the seniors also struggle with the suicide ideation and being lonely. Those types of things, maybe they've lost a spouse. So we do these types of activities in our community. And then another thing that we have on with the data is the need for the parenting classes. So we've been able to secure the funding now for 2 years, that we have a lot of parenting programs that are happening in our area, reminding parents that parenting classes aren't for bad parents, they're for parents who want to strengthen their parenting skills. But we've been able to partner with all of these different parenting classes, the Strengthening Families, which is done through JJS, Active Parenting, which is done through the Family Support Center, and then also the Parenting the Love and Logic Way, which we have a volunteer, a private citizen, Kristen Gerber, that does this. We've been able to go in and partner with all of these individuals and make sure that none of these classes cost any of the participants. So these are offered for free for our entire community. And again, Utah's suicide rate is 30% higher than the national average. Let's change that. Unfortunately, some of our numbers are even higher than the Utah average. And again, that is why we were able to secure a prevention specialist just that addresses suicide prevention. So again, also, if anybody has questions on the SHARP, contact Mary, contact myself. Please ask questions. Sometimes there gets to be some misinformation about what is being asked of our kids. Some of them have been so off the wall, some parents have called me and said, well, I can't believe you're asking the kids that. And I've even said, I can't believe we are either, because I've got the tests in front of me and that question's not even on here on any of them. So sometimes there are some scare tactics on trying to, people worried about what we're trying to ask the kids. And please just reassure people that we really do need this information. This information is available for any other organization. It's not just our prevention people at Northeastern Counseling. In fact, UB Tech just got a hold of some of this information to help them apply for a grant for a project they'd like to pursue. So please just be a support for this and an advocate for having our kids take this. And again, please, any questions, any concerns, please just ask Mary or myself or any other prevention worker. And I think that's it. Thanks. Any questions for Mary?
I just had one. So when you were talking about the your surveys, and that's one big question I had, was about how do you really decipher if the kids are taking it serious and not just clicking and going through it really fast, you know?
Mm-hmm.
What percentage do you find students doing that, as far as how much is it just bad data that you just have to throw out? Or is it a large extent, or do most of the kids take it pretty serious?
You know, most kids take it pretty serious. Another metric, at least at the online, well, in a classroom setting, teachers are able to kind of see who is taking it, and most students take all the time that they've been allotted. I think a faster reader will get through it faster, but that's about it. When students are taking it online, the system does track the amount of time that they take, and the average time is about 35 minutes. So it can't reach that average unless some kids are taking about an average of 30 minutes. So most students do take it seriously. And that's one thing that we hear pretty often is, well, how seriously do kids take this? But we've led focus groups, we've talked to kids, and kids are I think feel more empowered about sharing their voice and telling us what they think and what their lives are like than we often give them credit for. But students generally do take the survey seriously. The fact that we only kick out 1.6% of surveys in 2019 due to meeting one of those 5 validity checks, I think is a good indicator that kids are taking it more seriously than we often give them credit for.
Thank you. That's what I was wondering, here's that percentage. So that really is a low percentage. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to just jump in here real quick. Yeah, on the 2019 survey, our Prevention Advisory Coalition members assisted the schools in administering these. And I was actually shocked at how serious most of these kids, I kind of figured like you that, you know, their name's not on it, let's just hurry up and fill this out. A lot of them were really careful. We'd even have people, hey, I marked the wrong box, what do I do now? And this, so I was actually impressed with how serious the students took this as a whole.
Any other questions? That was a good one. Okay.
This is a quiet group.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and go, let's see, back. I'm just going to leave you with this. If anybody else wants to take this down and reach out for questions later, but thank you so much for having us. We are just so thankful that the state of Utah shows so much support. Like you heard in my bio, we do these surveys all across the country, and it is astounding. I am a Utah resident, a proud Utah resident, and it is astounding. Utah, every district participates. Every school within those districts participates. And other states where we do the survey, it's much more hit or miss in terms of participation and support. And it's really just tremendous that Utah understands that we need to make data-driven decisions, that we all want to create a better environment for our students to grow and thrive. So thank you for the support of this community and the SHARP survey. And just, like I said, just I am a resource. Reach out if you have any questions or needs.
Thank you again. I really appreciate that, Mary and Robin. You did an excellent job, and that information is so important. And we just appreciate your support, and we appreciate your prevention help, Robin, with your little group of 4. You do so much for our schools and our community, and we just appreciate all of your help and constant support. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. You guys have a good night.
You
Right.
too. Thank you again. And then for those of you that before you sign off, just a reminder that next Wednesday we'll have our live event with Charlie Jenkins and Colonel Colby Jenkins. So we're looking forward to that, and hopefully we'll see you then. Have a good night, everyone.